Every day, scrolling through the news and interacting with people online, you can't help but wonder, has the West completely lost its mind? In this video, I want to show you that things aren't as chaotic as they seem. In fact, there's a clear logic behind what's happening, and understanding it is the first step to fixing it. Every day, we see symptoms of deep unease playing out in our streets and on our screens. There are two main threads I want to focus on. First, there's a growing presence of people who live in Western countries but actively resent Western society. I'm talking about second-generation immigrants who never truly integrated, not because they couldn't, but because we never gave them something to integrate into. They exist in a kind of limbo, not fully accepted here, no longer connected to their parents' homeland. And that disconnect breeds resentment, alienation, sometimes even petty crime. This isn't about demonizing anyone. These are people trapped between two worlds, and we failed them. Second, there's a different kind of discontent coming from within. Young people, born and raised in the West, who seem to hate everything about the civilization that raised them. They fill the streets with protests, rage against the system, but can't articulate what they'd replace it with. They carry a deep self-loathing, a rejection of their own culture and history. Both of these phenomena create fear and frustration among ordinary citizens. People over 30 remember a different world, one where streets felt safer, where there was a shared sense of belonging. That's not nostalgia talking, it's a real contrast with today. Here's the key insight. None of this is random. There's no collective insanity. What we're witnessing is the logical outcome of specific ideas that have been quietly shaping our societies for decades. When you see chaos, look for the ideas behind it. Ideas have consequences, and bad ideas have bad consequences. Let me explain. Take the first problem, failed integration. In countries like Italy, the UK, France, and across Europe, a particular model was imposed from above. Extreme multiculturalism. Not the organic diversity that exists naturally within a nation, like regional cultures, local traditions, dialects, but a deliberate policy of importing radically different cultures without any expectation of assimilation. Now, successful immigrant integration is possible. Look at how the British integrated Indians in the early waves of Commonwealth immigration. There were clear values newcomers were expected to embrace: language, law, civic participation. Within a generation, many became more British than the British. The same principle made America work. The Constitution, the flag, free enterprise, individual liberty, these weren't optional. You could bring your own traditions, but you had to buy into the core. What did we offer in Europe? What shared identity did we ask newcomers to embrace? Nothing. Worse than nothing. We started removing our own symbols, taking down crosses, sanitizing our heritage, creating cultural safe spaces that isolated communities instead of uniting them. The result? A generation caught between worlds, with no anchor, no identity, and a growing resentment toward a society that never truly welcomed them. Now for the second problem, the young Westerners who hate their own civilization. This didn't come from nowhere. It's the fruit of a very specific intellectual tradition. It traces back to what I call the satanic archetype in revolutionary thought, not in a religious sense, but in the literary sense. Think of Milton's Paradise Lost, where Satan becomes the tragic hero, the rebel against an unjust cosmic order. This archetype, the hero who destroys rather than builds, who defines himself by what he opposes rather than what he loves, has seeped into our culture. It's in our movies, our literature, our politics. Combine that with decades of Marxist-influenced education that taught young people to see their own history as nothing but oppression, their own nations as guilty, their own traditions as obstacles to progress, and you get exactly what we see today. Young people who can't love their country because they've never been taught there's anything worth loving, who define themselves entirely in opposition, who have passion but no direction. Here's why this matters. If these problems are caused by ideas, they can be solved by better ideas. The alienated immigrant kid doesn't need to stay lost. He needs an identity worth claiming, a vision of citizenship that says, you belong here, and here's what that means. The angry protester doesn't need to stay angry. She needs a heroism worth pursuing, one that builds rather than destroys, that loves rather than hates. This is a cultural battle, not one fought with laws or policies alone, but with stories, with education, with a recovery of the best of our traditions. We need to stop apologizing for Western civilization and start articulating what makes it worth preserving and what makes it worth joining. This isn't about nostalgia or nationalism. It's about building something worth belonging to. The West isn't crazy. It's just forgotten what it stands for. And remembering is the first step back to sanity. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe if you want more content like this, and share it with someone who needs to hear a different perspective. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves and each other.